Ever catch yourself daydreaming about the future? Like picturing flying cars, teleportation, or
Yeah.
whatever. What if you could live to be 500 years old?
Wow, 500 years old.
Yeah. Well, our deep dive today is going to take us pretty close to those what ifs. We're diving into the predictions of futurist Ray Kurzweil. Have you heard of him?
Oh, absolutely. Kurzweil is fascinating. What's really interesting about him is how he backs up his predictions. I mean, we're not talking about some vague fortune teller here. He's got decades of research in AI.
Right. He's been developing AI, writing about it, making these bold predictions that honestly sometimes sound more like science fiction than reality.
And the thing is, he's often right. Remember back in the 90s when he said a computer would beat a human at chess?
Yeah. He was a little off on the timing, but then bam. Deep Blue beats Kasparov.
Exactly. So now, when Kurzweil says something big is on the horizon, people pay attention. And you know what he's saying now. He says we're approaching something called the singularity.
The singularity of
Yeah, it's this point where, and get this, technological progress accelerates so fast that things change irreversibly for humans, like civilization as we know it. Totally different.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but how do we even get there?
Well, one of the biggest drivers, according to Kurzweil, is something we hear about all the time. Computing power.
And how that computing power just keeps growing.
Exponentially. It's not just adding, it's multiplying, doubling roughly every 2 years.
Right, it's like that old penny riddle, yeah.
Yeah.
Doubles every day for a month. Seems small, but then bam, you're a millionaire.
Exactly. And to really illustrate this, Kurzweil showed a graph at South by Southwest this year, SXSW, charting the exponential growth of, get this, calculations per second per dollar.
Calculations per second per dollar.
Okay.
Starts slow, barely noticeable, but then it shoots up like a rocket.
Whoa.
And that same curve, that's what he sees fueling the explosion of AI we're seeing, especially in things like large language models.
Right. And for those who haven't been glued to the tech news lately, large language models, those are the AI systems that can generate text, like human quality stuff, right?
Totally. They can translate languages, write different kinds of creative content, answer your questions in a way that's informative, even if your question is open-ended, challenging, whatever.
It's pretty incredible.
And some experts think they're the very first step towards something even bigger, something called artificial general intelligence.
AGI, right? I've heard that term. Yeah, AGI. The holy grail of AI, research machine that can understand, learn, and perform any intellectual task a human can.
So not just playing chess or writing a poem, but like solving complex scientific problems.
Yeah, running businesses, designing new technologies. And Kurzweil, he believes that based on how quickly AI is progressing with this exponential computing power, we could reach that point, that singularity, within just a few decades.
A few decades. That's,
Yeah.
well, let's just say a lot sooner than I would have guessed. But what happens then? We create machines as smart as us, smarter even. What does that even mean for humanity?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's one we're going to unpack as we dive deeper into Kurzweil's vision.
And to help us unpack all of this, we're tapping into the mind of philosopher David Chalmers. He's written a lot on the singularity.
Yeah, because it's one thing to talk tech, but this is about what it means to be human.
Exactly. What happens to our sense of self, our purpose in the world if we're not the smartest ones around anymore? Makes you think, right?
Right.
But don't worry, we're going to break it all down for you. What are the benefits, the incredible advancements? What about the dangers?
We have to address the dangers, right? Because if we're talking about superhuman intelligence, we need to be very careful about control, about making sure those AI values align with human values. We need to keep things from, well, spiraling.
And what about the ethics? I mean, Kurzweil predicts we could radically extend human lifespans. How does that change our society, our relationships, even just our understanding of life and death?
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is. See, this is what I love about these deep dives. We could really get into these big questions.
These big questions that we don't always make time for.
Exactly. It's a chance to step outside of our comfort zones, challenge some assumptions, maybe even find a new perspective on what it means to be human in a world that's, well, changing very fast.
Yeah, changing fast.
So everyone listening, buckle up. We're about to go deep into the singularity, exploring how technology might reshape the world and maybe even ourselves in ways we can only just begin to imagine.
One of the most, I don't know about you, but I find this mind-bending, is Kurzweil on consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
This idea of what does it even mean to be conscious?
Yeah.
Could a machine ever really experience that?
It's interesting because he actually asks the audience this at South by Southwest.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He does this poll, like, raise your hand if you think there's something more to the human brain than just computation, something that a machine could never replicate.
And what'd they say?
Hands shot up.
Of course.
I mean, it's kind of intuitive, right? That there's something special, something unique about human consciousness.
You would think so, yeah.
But Kurzweil, he says, look, from a purely scientific point of view, we don't have a way to prove or disprove consciousness in any system, biological or artificial.
You can't really measure it.
You can't bottle it up.
No.
And then he tells this great story about Marvin Minsky,
Who's that?
pioneer in artificial intelligence.
Oh, okay.
And Minsky was skeptical, like really skeptical of this whole consciousness idea.
Yeah.
But even he would say that he couldn't help but treat people differently based on whether he thought they were conscious.
It's like this weird paradox.
It really is.
Yeah.
But how does this connect to AI?
Well, Kurzweil's argument, it boils down to this. If consciousness is a product of the physical processes in the brain,
Okay.
then those processes could be replicated, maybe even enhanced, in a machine.
So you're saying we could have AI that doesn't just think like us, but feels emotions, has experiences, maybe even like falls in love.
It's a lot. Right.
Blows my mind.
Challenges everything we think it means to be human.
For sure. But Kurzweil would say feelings, even love, it's all rooted in the physical structure of the brain.
Right.
But isn't there something different about human emotions, our experiences? That's where philosopher David Chalmers comes in, right? He goes deep on this.
Yes. Chalmers lays out these key arguments.
Okay.
Some philosophers, they're convinced consciousness is tied to biology. Me, a silicon machine? No way. But others, Chalmers included, they lean toward a functionalist view.
Breakdown time, what's that mean?
It's not about the stuff, it's the structure. Think of a computer program. Run it on a PC, Mac, whatever.
Yeah.
Same code, same function.
Because it's the instructions, not the physical device.
Exactly. Functionalists say consciousness might be like that. It's not about a flesh and blood brain.
But replicating how it's organized.
How the information flows. If we can crack that, then theoretically you could create consciousness in a computer.
So, hold on. If we buy into this and we add Kurzweil's predictions about computing power, brain-computer interfaces, are we saying we could merge with machines, upload our minds, live forever?
It's Kurzweil's vision.
It's a lot.
He really believes that brain-computer interfaces, connecting our brains to computers,
Yeah.
that'll let us enhance our brains, download knowledge, maybe even back up our entire consciousness.
Okay, now that sounds like sci-fi.
Right.
But let's say it's possible.
Okay.
What about the ethics?
Of course, huge questions. If we can make copies of ourselves, digital replicas, are those really us? Same rights, same responsibilities? And what if someone misuses this, controls people, makes an army of super intelligent digital beings?
Those are some heavy implications
There are no easy answers, but the point is we have to start thinking about them now,
before it's too late.
before these technologies are everywhere, because the choices we make now, that's what shapes the future.
It's like we're picking a path, but we can't even see where they lead yet.
One path, maybe it's a utopia. Technology solves all our problems, takes us to new heights.
And the other?
A dystopian nightmare. We lose control, and, well, the consequences could be disastrous.
So how do we even begin to make sure we're on the right one? There's a lot to consider, right? Like we're standing on the edge of something huge, but we don't have all the answers.
And that's why Kurzweil keeps saying we have to think about the ethics now, today. He lays out 4 big challenges. Misuse of AI, obviously. But then fairness, like, how do we distribute talent when AI could potentially do any job? And how do we even predict what we don't know?
It's not just what if AI goes rogue, it's what if AI goes so well that being human changes completely.
Exactly. And he uses this example about talent and value. Think about it. We put so much emphasis on our skills, right? But what if AI could give those skills to anyone? Download the knowledge of a brain surgeon, a concert pianist.
Like in The Matrix, suddenly, kung fu.
Right. Would that be fair? Or would it create a whole new set of problems we haven't even imagined yet?
It's a lot. And then there's the very real concern about AI going wrong, like that gray goo scenario Kurzweil talks about.
Yeah.
Nanobots, right?
Yeah, the idea that they could self-replicate, basically consume the entire planet. And the thing is, Kurzweil doesn't just brush it off. He does the math, figures out how long it would take for the gray goo to take over and how long it would take for, get this, blue goo to stop it. Basically, good nanobots versus bad nanobots.
So he's really considering the risks.
He is. But it's not just about preventing disaster, right? We have to make sure we're using these technologies for good, for everybody.
Which takes us to Chalmers and that whole question of control. If we do create superintelligence, how do we make sure it's actually working with us, not against us?
The million-dollar question. Chalmers talks about a few approaches. Constraining the values of AI, like programming in a moral code.
But what if we get the code wrong? Or what if, as AI gets smarter, its values change in ways we don't expect?
That's the worry. And that's why it's so important to not just build AI, but to really understand it, how it makes decisions, what impact those decisions could have.
Almost like we need a whole new field, like AI ethics or something.
People are working on it, and it's only going to get more important as technology advances because AI isn't separate from us. We create it, we use it, it's going to touch everything.
So what do we do? How do we get ready for all this?
Stay informed, learn about AI, the good and the bad, talk about it with everyone because these choices we're facing them together.
And I think, more than anything, stay curious, right? Ask the big questions, imagine the possibilities, really think about what kind of future we want.
The future isn't set in stone, it's what we make it.
It really has been quite the deep dive today. We've gone from AI solving our problems to the nature of consciousness to, well, maybe even the end of the world as we know it.
We've covered a lot.
We have. And I hope everyone listening has had a chance to not just be amazed by this stuff, but to think about it all critically. What does it mean for us?
Exactly.
This is about more than just cool technology. It's about what it means to be human in a world that's changing faster than ever. So keep those questions coming, keep the conversation going, because the future is waiting for no one.